In our treatment of both perfectly competitive firms as well as oligopolistic firms, we've always assumed that the firms are producing goods that are perfect substitutes for one another. In other words, we've always assumed that they're producing the same good. We'll now begin to talk about product differentiation and the fact that there's an incentive for firms to differentiate their products in order to gain some market power. And two primary ways in which we model product differentiation are previewed in this graph. One way to model product differentiation is to assume that there is a product characteristic which can vary in value from 0 to 1. This is a linear product differentiation model where firms can choose their product characteristic anywhere on the line depicted here. This model is also called the hoteling model, and will show in graph 26.2 that if two firms are prohibited from competing on price and instead compete by choosing a product characteristic along this line, they'll both choose the median product characteristic in equilibrium in order to maximize market share. We'll also demonstrate that when firms are allowed to compete on price, they have an incentive to differentiate their products along this line. The hoteling model in panel A is most useful for analyzing competition between two oligopolistic firms that can choose product characteristics. But when we turn to analyzing competition across multiple oligopolistic firms, and in particular when we begin to think about entry of new firms into the oligopolistic industry, we'll find a different model more useful. In this model, we assume that firms choose a product characteristic that lies on a circle, and as new firms enter the industry, they'll spread around that circle, differentiating their product, gaining some market power, but competing with one another as well. As increasing numbers of firms settle around that circle of product characteristics, we will refer to the type of market structure that emerges as one of monopolistic competition. The circle model of product differentiation will be particularly useful for us to think about all the market structures that lie in between the extremes of perfect monopoly and perfect competition. When fixed entry costs are very high, there are high barriers to entry, and a single firm might choose one product characteristic on the circle of possible product characteristics and serve the entire market, even though some consumers would prefer products with very different characteristics. But as fixed entry costs fall, or as demand increases, new firms might settle on that circle of product characteristics, differentiating themselves from incumbent firms in order to gain some market power, but also competing with incumbent firms because the two are producing products that are somewhat substitutable. As the first firms enter onto the circle of differentiated products, the market structure moves away from perfect monopoly to oligopoly with differentiated products. As further firms enter, we will call the industry monopolistically competitive, with lots of small firms producing differentiated products, exercising some, but not very much market power. Then, as the fixed entry costs fall further, or demand increases even more, each point on the circle of differentiated products will slowly be filled in and served by a firm. And once firms fill the entire circle, we will have reached the opposite extreme of perfect competition, where no firm has any market power.